Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Mars, host of the SOS the Shout Out Show. Hope you're having a wonderful Saturday. Today's episode of the Shout Out Show for our Saturday Spotlight, we will be talking about 9/11. When I say 9/11, I mean remembering 9/11 aspects of it. We all have our different stories to tell. We'll be bringing on some folks to talk about their experiences and really beginning to look at what 9/11 was in terms of we say a foreign policy change towards, if you will, um, global terrorism. But was it that? Was it that? I mean, we're going to have to look at what really happened on 9/11, but you also have to look at some of the things that happened before 9/11 and how it has affected us up to this point. Well, 20 years, brothers and sisters. This is a 20-year anniversary. Even now, just recently, they found the remains two people from 9/11, 20 years later. And it seems like the wounds and the reminders of never 9/11 will never abate. I'm never one to say get over it because we'll never get over it. The sense of loss, the sense of vulnerability, those are things that we relive every year around this time. And remembering 9/11 is the larger thing, but we never really resolved 9/11. When I say resolve, I mean look directly with courage and consistency and meaning and focus at as the things that caused this situation, the loss of life, of innocent life that permeated from policies over the seas that found themselves on the shore, on American shores. This time of the year, I get a little tight jawed. I get a little tight jawed because we talk about remembering 9/11, but we don't remember responsibility. We don't remember things that we said. We don't remember things that we did. We don't remember an Iraq war. We don't remember these things, brothers and sisters. And sometimes it's an insult to me, but more so to the families and victims of 9/11 that people are not telling the truth. People are not saying that, this could have been avoided. We knew about these things. And if you move all of that to the side, it's just, brothers and sisters, the sadness that policies, whether it's extremism, whether it's, you know, colonial ideas, whatever it is, it should not wind up in the scope where people lose their lives. On a Tuesday morning, the idea is that you get up, and the expectation when you get up on a Tuesday morning, September 11th, 2001, is that you will see Tuesday night. Is that a lot to think about? No. But my point, brothers and sisters, is that everybody's life was altered, particularly that of Muslims in America or American Muslims, but also, let's say it, Muslims around the world find themselves in an identity crisis. And so many things launched out of this identity crisis. You know, I used to say a joke about 9/11. I called it 9/11itis, which was this propensity of people to apologize for foreign acts of terror that they didn't do. And the joke was, if you didn't do it, act like you didn't do it. If you didn't do it, act like you didn't do it. And moving away from this guilt by association, this weird synonymous idea that we had to apologize for people who were not from us, who didn't literally practice their religion that they claimed like we did, who had beefs beyond the Quran and Sunnah. They were not inspired by this Quran. They were not inspired by the message and example of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. They were not inspired by peace. And yet we still found ourselves in this space that we had to explain for people who were no longer there. 9/11 bears a weird balance for me, and I'm going to talk about it because as an African American and an African American Muslim, I found myself challenged. I found myself in a space that I had not been there before. It was a space of uncertainty Do I go with the patriotism, the fervent patriotism that was like, get all the Muslims? Or do I stand up as a human being and a Muslim and an African American, following the tradition of my teachers, and say, wait a minute, pump your brakes. We're dealing with a tragedy. But my point is, you can't take a tragedy and roll it over and leverage it to your position or your advantage. That's wrong. Brothers and sisters, we're going to talk about remembering 9/11 on the show today. I hope you're having a good day. This is Preacher Moss at SOS. Let's get rolling. And we're back. Brothers and sisters, let me welcome everybody to the spot. I want to give a shout out to Sister Ree. Hope you're doing well. Sister Ree is going to be doing her last, for a while, I guess she's going to be doing her last food exhibition at International Market. I think that's 239 Greens Road, Houston, Texas, 11 to 7. Her menu, if I remember correctly, is going to be jerk chicken, rice, and or rice or potato salad, 7-Up cake, soda. You can get all those good things. All right, cool. So shout out to Sister Ree. We have some people in the building today. We want to give a shout out to Johnny L. Thomas, JT, my little brother. JT actually went through 9/11 with me as well. So we have a lot of people who can respond to this, because I had to go through a whole type of rebuilding, if you will. We're going to talk about that because a lot of people, some of the people in this same show right here, some of the Shout Out Show family had to go through this rebuilding of 9/11 as well. Okay, next up, Altaf Rashid, Canadian ambassador to the show. Why like Maslana for two about the culture. Altaf, I know you're going to have some words. Even Canada had to respond to 9/11 because this was not just a United States event. It was a reevaluation and a new emphasis on global terrorism around the world. Good to see you, Altaf. What's going on, Adam Khan? Walaikum assalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good to see you, brother. Thank you so much. I know you have some insights on this coming from north of the border. We're going to get into that. I'm going to give a little bit of a narrative before we get started, and then we're going to open it up. All right, Adam, thank you so much for coming on the show. And Fight the Power word. What is a discussion on 9/11 without Fight the Power word? Thank you so much for coming and joining us. I hope you're doing well and having a blessed day. I hope all of you are having a blessed day. And I also want to give a shout out, of course, to our consultant producer. That would be Miss Sultana Whitfield, who will be joining us today on the stream to talk about it because Sultana lived right next to when 9/11 happened 20 years ago. I don't even know. Were you in Somerset 20 years ago or you were right there in Newark? She'll let us know.
Hey everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you,
I'm
everyone?
narrative, but I want to know where were you in
Yeah, so we can talk about, that a little bit. We'll finish up and I can give my kind of reflections on that.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I appreciate you.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm really interested. I'd had situations of people who were in New York, and yeah, I'm going to get into that all around. I'm going to get into that all around.
Okay.
So let me
So
give this
so we do want to just let everyone know that if they do want to get onto the stream,
if you want
and
to get
kind of talk,
brothers and sisters, can we put that up for them?
yeah, that is up there. So it's a bit.ly link. And I'll post it again.
To get on the
It's
show today, the show today,
yeah.
but this is
So
live
it's
on the show. There you go. It is in the broadcast. I don't know if we can bring it into the. There you go, brothers and sisters. You can hit HTTPS. That's bit.ly, bit.ly /PMOS 911. That is, I didn't even make that up. That is bit.ly /PMOS 911. That's kind of goofy, but I guess that's what it is today. So if you want to get in and you want to share some of your experience with brothers and sisters, we do that. So hokey that make it PMOS 911. I didn't even
It's
come up with that. It's just,
no, it's
we
not. It's PMSO. It's PMSOS 911.
I need to go see the doctor. See, I'm okay. PM SOS, same thing. Preacher Moss SOS 911. There you
Oh,
go.
shoot.
Same thing. PM SOS 911. All right. All right. Let me get
Yes,
to this narrative and then we're going to bring in Sister Satana. Let me set this up for all of you guys. Okay. So 9/11 happened on a Tuesday. Let me give you guys the background, brothers and sisters, about how I get to 9/11. So the weekend before 9/11, I'm down in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. I'm there with my mother. I'm doing a conference, a college conference, Association for the Promotion of College Activities. My good friend Eric Lampert, shout out Eric Lampert. There I was trying to get myself going in the college market some 20 some years ago and had done this conference. Now, what was important, brothers, is was I take my mom with me down to Atlanta. We drove. I didn't have airline money. I was like, Mom, come. I wanted to get her out of the house, get her mood up. We drove down to Atlanta. She had a great time. We enjoyed ourselves. Booked a few colleges. Now, brothers and sisters, that was that weekend. We had to come back on a Sunday. We left early morning Sunday, came back essentially because we were worn out. We drove back. We got back in the DC area that Sunday. That Monday was just kind of running around. Now, this is important to remember. My mother was exhausted from the road trip. My flight was booked out of Dulles Airport, which is in Virginia. It's on the Dulles Toll Road. I was booked to go out on a flight out of Dulles. American Airlines flight number 77. I did not take that flight. The reason was to go out to Dulles. Dulles is roughly a little under 45 miles from my mother's house. I was worried about her being fatigued, having to go essentially 90 miles round trip plus tolls. I was like, she can't do it. She was exhausted. And so I switched my ticket to fly out of a closer airport. They let me do it. I did it. Consequently, on 9/11, I took my flight, early flight, connecting through St. Louis. Not taking the flight, American Airlines number 77, leaving out of Dulles, going from Dulles directly to Los Angeles, California, where I lived at the time. I lived in Long Beach. Now, all of you guys gonna preach, why would you take a flight that has connect and then go to connect to St. Louis? Well, you could have taken a flight that was nonstop, direct. All in my mind, I'm like, yo, I don't want my mom to stress. Essentially, what happened, brothers and sisters, was by the time I got to St. Louis Airport, we connected. I'm on my flight. I'm waiting to get to Los Angeles. The flight attendant tells everybody, attention passengers, get all your stuff, get off this plane. What kind of customer service is this? She says, we don't know when we're going to be flying. Get everybody's stuff now. Get your stuff now. And you can imagine people pulling their stuff off. And as I came around the corner from getting off the flight, there was a bar there. And the bar had all kind of people just gathered around the TV. And I'm thinking, boy, they must be serving some powerful liquor in there. And I was watching planes hit a building. I'm watching planes hit a building. Now, this isn't new. I'm thinking maybe they're showing the movie True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Tom Arnold. No, brothers and sisters. They were like, no, a plane hit the World Trade Center, and before they could finish it, another plane hit it again. I'm like, wow. Unbeknownst to me, because I didn't tell my mother that I was going to switch flights. I figured it wasn't a big deal. My mother thought that I was still going out of Dulles, taking flight American Airlines flight number 77 from Dulles to Los Angeles. Consequently, that flight never made it to Los Angeles. That flight left Dulles and crashed into the Pentagon, killing everyone on the plane. Nobody knew where I was for roughly 36 hours. Let me say it again, 36 hours. Because literally, when this thing hit, you could not make a phone call. You could not pull money out of an ATM. We were forced to, in St. Louis Lambert Airport, all of us had to get out of our luggage. But I just want you to imagine that everybody in the airport has to get all of their luggage at the same time. We're not talking about your flight just landed, it took off. No, everybody's luggage. And I remember being there with comedian John Witherspoon. May Allah be pleased with him. And he said, "Preacher, I don't know what's going on." He actually said some things other than that. But from a senior, he goes, "We're in trouble." He goes, "We're in trouble." And we tried to get a car rental to leave from, of course, St. Louis to get to Los Angeles, even at a ridiculous price, a one-way trip from St. Louis to Los Angeles in the car. They wanted like $8,000, and we couldn't even get the car. Isn't that crazy? If we had $8,000, they would not have a car available for us. And there I was, stuck in this space of ambiguity. Nobody knew where I was. My mother, my poor mother, my dad too, thought that I was on the flight that left from Dallas and went to LA. And in this period, they didn't know. And I remember finally getting a phone call through to my mother. And I'll never forget the shriek. Brothers and sisters, the pure shriek of terror and relief at the same time. You know how you never want to hurt your parents? You never want to see them cry. I will never forget the noise that my mother made at knowing that I was alive. The things that followed were basically I was stuck in St. Louis airport. I had to work my way around. We didn't know if we were being bombed or anything like that or any other planes were coming. Every airport was closed. No planes were flying. And, brothers and sisters, let me add, I had to stay at a hotel in St. Louis. There were no hotels. I stayed at a hotel that was being demolished. And the only reason I got to stay there was because 9/11 had held up the demolished date. And I paid $49.99 to stay in a hotel that was going to be demolished. They had no towels. They had no soap. It was a mess, brothers and sisters. But we persevered. Eventually, I made it to LA. But that was the easy part. The question that America asked people was not how this happened, who's responsible. The call was America first. Whoever did this, we're going to go get them. We're not going to talk about American policy before this or during this or anything that may result in this action. And I sat like a lot of people, particularly Muslims, and I sat and I said, I know what's coming down the pike. And as they began to show pictures of Muhammad Atta and all these people and the narrative of these guys taking over the planes with box cutters and all this stuff, I said, man, the world is never going to be the same. Let me tell you how crazy the world was then. If you were black and Muslim, you can stop being Muslim and you can join the most vilest conversation with every racist in America because they loved you, because you weren't them. And the things that was said about Muslims and what they wanted to do to Muslims, and if they got a chance, it was outright scary. And what was scary was they were saying to me, thinking as a black person, I was For this situation, American enough, as long as I supported what they were saying. Eventually, I made to LA, but it was never the same. And as things bore out, our attacks or occupation of Afghanistan and going back into Iraq and threatening every country that didn't go along with our foreign policy, brothers and sisters. But even more so, the damage that was done with U.S. domestic policy. In particular, I'm speaking to and referring to the Patriot Act, which was one of the most detrimental foreign policies, particularly with the African American and Latino community. It locked up very few terrorist brothers and sisters. The Guantanamo Bay is one of the smallest prisons in the world, but it was there for sport. So we're going to get into that. I'm going to bring on my partner, my consultant producer, Sister Sultana Whitfield. She's going to share some thoughts. Sister Sultana, come on in and jump on with us.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh. How
How
you doing?
doing okay. This is always a very somber day, and of course, continued condolences to the everyone that was lost during that day. Um, I think everyone who was there that day can still remember this day, right?
Mhm.
Like I can just like remember. And so I'm in New Jersey, and right. So one of the planes actually took off from the Newark International Airport here. The one, of course, we know as Preacher talked about in Chicago, and then one, of course, um, and they, went to New York. So, so it was the clearest day. That's the one thing I remember. I was like, wow, this is such a bright and clear day. It was just like, that's the one thing I knew is like, I've never seen it so crisp out. And this was early in the morning. So I used to work in New York. So prior to this, I used to work in New York.
Mhm.
The company that I worked for, it was a startup company. We closed down at the end of July of that year.
Really?
Yeah, we closed down at the end of July. The company was um, it was at Broome and Broadway. So if anyone knows New York, it's right um, in the same area as the Twin Towers. So coming into from New York, I would either take the bus or I would take the train, and it would let me out either way. The bus let me out right in front of Twin Towers, or or if I took the PATH train, the train and the PATH train, I came up in front of the Twin Towers. Like it was like right across the street. And then when
Were,
I went home, I was right there.
were
So,
you
and I would walk like
were
5
you there that
blocks.
day? Were you there that day?
I was not there that day. I was not there that day. So I'm just
All right.
kind of giving you some context. And so my office was like 5 blocks down, and we just walked through. So I wasn't there that day. But the last day that we were in, so the company had closed. And so, it's the summertime. We were like, let's go over to the Trade Center. A friend of mine, we were like, not, it was that day we weren't working. We're like, well, let's go over to the Trade Center. The Trade Center during the summer, they had like the summer classic, like they would have like live bands outside, like in the courtyard. It's like kind of this dip
Mhm.
down. You would sit in the stairs, eat your lunch, and just like hear these live bands. So we were like, let's go over there. So a couple of times that summer, we went over there and just like kind of hung out over there. And I remember just looking up. I had a camera and looked up and just took a picture of like the Twin Towers. This was like in late August sometimes. So then this was like 2 weeks before 9/11. So that day, I was, since again, the company had closed down, I was like, let me take the summer off. I was at a friend of mine's house, and she was like, can you just sit? And people were coming over. I think the painters or something were coming over, and I was like, sure, I can do that. Now, here's the thing: I never had a television at home. Like, I still don't have a television at home. So I happened to be at her house that day, and I was just like watching television. And like I said, it was a clear day. And I'm like, and then I heard, I had the television on, and they broke the news, and they were like, a plane went into the building. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, it's a clear, and I'm thinking like, wow, maybe the pilot had a problem, and maybe, like,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
could you like this? I mean, if you, on a clear day, like, how could you do this? And so I'm calling my mom, and then the painter, he came out. He was like, "Oh, my daughter works at the Trade Center." I was like, "There's something happening at the Trade Center. Maybe you need to contact her." Um, so I never knew, the results of that. Um, I said, "Okay." And then my friend who I was with, she worked in New York, and then her mom worked in the Trade Center. I'm like, okay. So then, and then I'm just watching television. I'm on the phone with my mother, and then the second plane goes into the building. I like I screamed. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
It was like
it wasn't a movie.
it wasn't a movie. It wasn't a movie. Like it was like I'm still like I can I can like I know that day very well. I know that day. Like I don't like I know that day very well, right? Um And so, and then after that, like you said, like the communications went out. Like I couldn't get a friend of mine. I'm trying to figure out what's happening with people. Then finally got to her. She had to walk over the Brooklyn Bridge. She couldn't find her mother. And so then I was like this command center. Like, it was just like, it was a crazy day. It was a crazy day. And then the pain, I don't even know what happened to the pain. Like after I think he figured out what was happening, I think he left. I don't even it, it was and it was just a crazy time. I even remember, so I stayed there like most of the day. I don't think she got home until like early morning, like like 1 a.m. or something. It was
I was stuck with a comedian,
stressing. It's
a white guy, about 6 foot four,
mm-hmm.
bald head. His name was Tree,
True.
and I'm like, Tree, I don't know what is going on. And so with the hotel we stayed at, the television reception was really sketchy. I think I told you they were getting ready to demolish the place.
Yeah.
And this is 2000, so you didn't have all the fancy. If you had HBO back in 2001, that was a big
Mm-hmm.
deal. And I remember there was a Holiday Inn that was walking distance, but you
Mm-hmm.
were in a car. There was a
Yeah.
Holiday Inn that was walking distance, um, and I walked over there because you couldn't get food. Like you couldn't get food, and the food and beverage person was a Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, his name was Brother Muhammad. I remember because he he put tape over his
Yeah.
over his name tag.
Yeah.
Like you could tell it was like, yo, what's
Mm-hmm.
like I was like, yo, what's and I looked at
No.
him and I gave him the greeting quietly and he was like and he was legitimately scared. Imagine
Absolutely.
he's
Yeah.
at the hotel and he has to do his job as a Muslim as this
Yeah.
just happened.
Mm-hmm.
And the there was a congealing of thoughts because it was like, hey, I can play black, you can't.
Mm-hmm.
If it all goes south, I'm black and Baptist, right?
Right. Right.
Stuff like that. But you're not
Mm-hmm.
doing that.
Right. Let's read a comment from Ree. Ree said, "This is a very emotional day. I'm sorry. This is a very emotional day for all. It was horrible. We thought my ex father-in-law was dead for days. Wow, and we couldn't do nothing but wait. He called a few days later." And that is so real. Thank you for sharing, Ree. That is so real because communication was out. You couldn't get, any reception, cell phone reception. You couldn't get anything. It was like one of the most quietest times I remember. And then even after that, it was still very clear for the next couple of days. And I remember there was no planes flying. It was so
It was
eerily
quiet.
quiet. It was so quiet.
Well, we had to wait. We were stuck in St.
Yeah.
Louis. We had to wait. Um, you had to wait for flights to start flying again
Yeah.
because it was shut down. And on not only that, you had to also there was this whole thing about how are you going to get home. So it was like a
Sure.
lottery. It was like a lottery process. So imagine all these flights are booked, none of them are taking off, and it's just like all the flights are just backing up. This is where they had the automation and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember the night before, I told Brother Muhammad, I was like, he's like, I was like, so, my first thought was we got to get to the masjid.
Hmm.
And my thought then was, let me let me see if I get a hold of somebody in NOI.
Hmm.
And somebody referred me to Minister Donald Muhammad. Could not get a hold of him because of what you said, the communication thing.
Through the towers. Yeah.
Twin Towers issue. You know what also compounded issues? Like there was a general panic about how do we protect our masjids.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
the guy picked me up and he goes, well, we were going to go pray. And I remember going to this mosque outside, right outside of the airport. And the people were going in and they were scared. They're really scared. So it was like I think it was like Fajr prayer, Isha prayer. I mean, not Fajr prayer, but either Maghrib or Isha. And it was like a town hall. So it
Mm-hmm.
was more traffic. And I remember walking there and here's what freaked me out. All the people just went out. I'm like, who's doing security?
Yeah.
Like, who's standing post?
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody can't go in.
Yeah. We're very security minded.
Like,
Yeah.
everybody can't go in. And I remember several brothers from the NOI just randomly showing up.
Wow.
Like, they just showed up. And of course, I'm not, and I wasn't dressed. And they weren't like dressed down, but it was clear. And we stood post. I remember standing post with these guys
Hmm.
because the people inside didn't understand that we're in a state of war right now. Like this thing will go badly really, really quickly, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you really understand.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember the conversation that we were having while we stood post, which was a very deep conversation, which was, is this our problem?
Hmm.
We literally said, is this our problem? And the question resonated through the community, like, this is an international thing. This is not us.
Hmm.
And it became that question. It's like, if we get in, are we gonna be left in some regards holding the bag on, we're gonna take our lumps with everybody. Of course that was all put to rest. But there was that feeling like, hey man, this is we got it was almost like we're already black, we got enough problems. Right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna go out and say we black, we're Muslim, we're gonna hold arms with everybody. But it was pretty apparent just by the fact that brothers that showed up to stand on post for masjid they didn't attend. I was like, okay, we pretty much made up our minds.
Sure. Sure.
We pretty much had made up our minds. But I mean, to really put it out there, I was like, yeah, this thing is different. And it was like, what it felt like? It felt like for the Muslims, it was like the reverse slave trade.
Hmm.
It's like the reverse. So we're gonna export all of our anxieties, all our American exceptionalism, and we're gonna do whatever we want to because this happened and we're America. And I was like, this policy is not going to work. No, it's not going to work. Adam has a comment.
So it's interesting that 911 hits different based on how you look. The first hate crime victim after 911 was a Sikh man. That's so true.
Yeah,
In the hometown, the mosque was vandalized. In my hometown, the mosque was vandalized, but the Sikh temple was burned because racists were too ignorant to know the difference. Was this in Wisconsin?
no,
No, it wasn't. Okay.
this recently happened in Wisconsin. Adam is talking about this happened in Canada.
In Canada. Okay. In
Yeah.
Canada. Yeah. Because I remember this also happened to a Sikh
Oh yeah,
temple
he was
a
murdered.
couple of years ago. Yeah. Yeah.
No, but in
Because
9/11, you had a case of a Sikh who was killed because people thought he was Muslim. That was the
I don't
thing.
know.
I remember George Bush reciting reciting ayat from the Quran, If you take one life, it's like you killed all of humanity. And people were like, yeah. And I had this thing. It's like, look, this goodwill is only gonna last about a minute.
Second. Yeah.
I remember when he said
Yeah.
that. You know what I said to myself? He gonna kill everybody. I was like, I'm like,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that supposed to make me feel comfortable? I'm like, I'm looking at everything that led before. I mean, we'd had the Afghanistan war. We had
Mm.
going on in Syria. The United States was involved in a whole lot of mess. We were messy.
Sure.
We were messy in 9/11. We were extremely messy. Yeah. And even though, let me indict myself. Even though we were messy, I didn't think it would come to this. We were
Yeah.
messy in other people's houses.
Yeah.
I think nobody expected that this thing would revisit in our house.
Yeah. So we want to hear from other people. Either come into the stream, to the live stream, and it's a Bitly link that we have, PM SOS 911, or put some comments in the comment section. Definitely. So, you mentioned the Patriot Act.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the longest reads.
Mm,
Yeah, but it was a case that the Patriot Act passed. Very few people read it.
mm,
Very few people read it. I think one of the things that I picked up from the Patriot Act was that it had a domestic plan that had nothing to do with 9/11.
right. Right.
It
Right.
was the ability for police to surveil other Americans,
Hmm.
to do search and seizure of other Americans. It had nothing to do with global terrorism, international terrorism.
Right. Right.
And one thing I remember from this, and this is something that it's still on the books, as a matter of fact. They argued about it a couple years back. They instituted a sneak and peek rule.
Mm,
You
mm,
know, sneak and peek, right?
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
they rewrote the sneak and peek rule where officials could enter your premises, enter your property, do a search, do a full search, and you're not there. You're not on the premises.
Hmm.
There's no overriding supervision. They're just in you. Like you can't be in the place. They could just come in and
Come in
search.
place. Do it.
Yeah,
Grab a warrant based on that. Yeah.
and
Hmm.
draw a warrant based on
Yep.
that. And if they didn't find anything, they reframed it. They didn't have to. They didn't have to tell you. The language is that they can tell you in a reasonable time.
Hmm. And that's not defined.
It's not in a reasonable time.
Right.
It's not an hour, a week, a reasonable time. A reasonable according to who?
Right. Could be a year.
It
Could come
could
up.
be here or
Yeah.
hey, Eddie retired before telling him that he did the search. And we look at things now. They put a graphic up that before 9/11, there was a crisis in the private prison industry.
Mm.
Um, and the crisis in the private prison industry was based on the fact that public prisons, state prisons, federal prisons had low
Yeah. Nobody.
they
Yeah.
had low enrollment.
Right.
They couldn't feed the private prisons. They were like, hey, we got to keep the inmates we have. After 9/11, I say a year and a half after, prison overcrowding.
Mm.
Prison overcrowding.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, and I always say, I don't want to say the bait and switch, but it was a bait and switch. All the paperwork, nobody knew what Al Qaeda meant. Do you know what Al Qaeda means in Arabic? It means the foundation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what is the foundation? And then, of course, Osama bin Laden's and stuff. And you know what the sad part was? I'm like,
Mm.
they immediately had to say, we train these people. We have relationships with the people who are attacking us.
Trained them, gave them weapons. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because when you
I
come
mean,
in, they find out like, oh, look at this marking. It's a U.S. marking
I
on
mean,
the
the Bin
weapons.
Laden family knew the Bush family.
Who's this?
The Bin Laden family knew the Bush family.
Wow. It's interesting.
I mean, they of course, he wasn't they didn't know Osama, but I'm like, because you go into the Middle East and you start looking at all the DNA of the United States and Saudi, their
Mm,
influence in Saudi, their business interests in Saudi. I'm like, this is crazy.
yeah, let's hear from
Yeah.
Alsaf. Also said, in the years following 9/11, I was pulled over at customs in Florida because my name was similar to someone suspected of terrorism. Only reason I was free to go is I knew someone at the airport. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember the no-fly list.
Yeah.
Uh, I came upon the no-fly list 2005. No, no, no. It was 2004. My aunt Ruth had passed away.
Mm.
I had to do a gig, and I had to fly to Milwaukee, and that's when I found out I was on a no-fly list. They were
Wow.
like, "Yeah,
Now your name's not even,
close,
it's not even, it's not even
close."
Muslim, Islamic or Arabic name, right? I noticed that after 9/11, I think to this day, I mean, I haven't been on a flight since before COVID, but
Wait,
yeah,
let
I
me
would,
frame this. This was this was over 3 years afterwards.
yeah, yeah.
This is 3 years afterwards.
I get pulled
Like,
out of line every time, like every time.
yeah, but I
Like,
think the thing was, I felt like we were being conditioned.
mm,
Uh, we were being conditioned to not look at a larger picture.
mhm,
Like, this is the person who did it. This is the person that's responsible for all this misery. This is the person that's responsible for me uh oppressing you. That was the thing.
mm,
Hey, Muslim community, this is the reason we get to oppress you. This person. And sadly, in our community, a lot of people bought that.
mm,
A lot of people tied into this idea that somehow we deserve the treatment that we were getting. And it was a weirdness, you know. And I'll say this: it really, really exposed really, really deep fractures in the Muslim community, particularly between the indigenous Muslims and immigrant Muslims.
mm.
It wasn't exploited like Islamophobes could have done, but it exposed a lot of fundamental differences because now you need the solidarity. You need
Yeah,
the solidarity that you've been ignoring for a long time.
yeah,
Now
yeah.
you have to revisit some things. You have to revisit relationships because how do we get along? Well, this crew over here has been dealing with this since they
Mm.
got here. So now class is in session.
Yeah, I think this is where a lot of the interfaith movement started.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because it really
hmm
wasn't
it really
interfaith,
wasn't. Yeah,
but
but
it was it interfaith or was like, hey, I'm okay. That's what it felt like. Hey,
mm,
I'm likable. Hey, I'm not like the
it was
yeah,
more
like the
the
other.
kind of assimilation.
It's something like, but
Yeah.
the thing was, and
Mm,
feel free to jump in.
mm,
You know, I don't agree. Definitely don't agree with terrorism. Okay,
mm,
but you can't overlook the
right.
fact that oppression produces these types of actions.
Mm, yeah.
People just don't wake up and go, "This is what I'm going to do." You know, this comes out of the worst type of just hopelessness. When you feel like this is the best way I can express myself, that's scary.
That's very scary.
Literally. And people walk around and go, oh, the terrorists. It's the same thing with people who do drugs. It's the
Mm,
same people who have problems with alcohol. This thing on me is so heavy that this is the way that I can best express myself. And I'm like, and listen, I'm a comedian. We just had a situation in the comedy community. Uh, at a party, three comedians died, two hospitalized, but three comedians died
mm.
using cocaine that was laced with fentanyl.
Oh wow. Wow.
Michael K. Williams. It's going to probably come out the same way.
It's coming out. Yeah, that
We look
definitely.
at people, we look at people pressure.
Hmm.
Pressure. Now, I'm just talking about regular pressure is tough. When you have somebody pressuring you, this is going to happen. You push people in a corner, they're going to do one. They're going to fight, or they're going to fight, or they're going to turn inwards.
Hmm.
Like, those are the things we do with, like I said, these things. And this is the whole thing about American exceptionalism, Satana.
Hmm.
Too often, it's like in sports, like in football. When the play ends, it's always the second person that gets caught, right?
Hmm.
You never see the first punch, you only see the second punch.
Right. Right.
And that's the way this thing was. We never saw the first punch.
Hmm.
We never saw the first punch.
Yeah.
We saw the second punch. Fight the
So
power
fight
word.
the power word. I'm gonna figure out who fight the power word is. I'm not sure who this is, but the hate that hate produced. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
I don't know if anybody ever saw that segment by Mike Wallace with Malcolm X, the famous hate that produced hate,
Mm-hmm.
where he interviewed Malcolm X, and they talked about the NOI, and they talked about this very dangerous group of Black Muslims. And you know what made them dangerous?
Mm.
They were trying to establish meaningful life away from white oppression.
Oh, this is Elijah. I'm sorry, Elijah. Okay, so don't wake him, Elijah.
Elijah,
Sorry
Elijah,
about that. I'm just like, who is fight the power word? And I kept saying, because I was like, okay, he's from Houston because he talked about
he told
pancake
me about
breakfast one day, and I'm like, he's from Houston.
yeah, I forgot one day. Actually, he did say it to him because he hit me after the show. We
Oh, okay.
gave me some suggestions, but I'm getting. But I mean, Elijah, what was it like? Elijah's on here. Fight the power word is on. Elijah, what was the feeling in Houston, in your town, when 9/11 hit?
Yeah, definitely.
So I know um, in LA it was weird because actors didn't know how to act.
Meaning,
People who applied their like a great actor basically gets you to suspend your reality about who they are. You believe this character, right?
mm,
So we had to suspend a lot of who we thought America was
okay.
to be patriotic. Like it wasn't about being right, honest, responsible. It's about being patriotic.
Hmm.
And I remember the patriotism that was there. It reminds me of the insurrection in January. It was that type of
Uh,
fervor and that
yes.
type of weird enthusiasm
Yeah.
where people are acting.
Yeah.
Well, in America, it wasn't like, let's get to the bottom of this, let's find out. This became the reason to go out and bomb a masjid and tear women's hijabs off to
Right.
unleash this evil and oppression.
And what
You
was
know,
the term? And and again, let's as you said, terrorism is absolutely a wrong act. Um, and so condolences to so many people that were lost that day.
the family,
Um,
everybody.
but there was definitely a rallying cry, afterwards, and you saw this. I remember my neighborhood. I remember my neighborhood the first day that planes started to, because we did something in our neighborhood. I think everyone put candles out or what have you. And then I remember the first day that a plane flew overhead, like everyone just froze and looked up, like I'm telling, like I remember that period so clearly,
I
so
remember
clearly.
when I finally got to LA, people couldn't come to pick you up.
Hmm.
You would have to take a bus away
Yeah.
from the airport, like 2 miles
Hmm.
away from the airport, and that person would have to pick you up from that space. You were not getting anywhere near the airport.
Yeah. That.
Zero. And that's the way it was. Like you would have to take a bus to the airport, every security. I mean, they were trying to figure out what eventually would become TSA. I mean, it was
Yeah, yeah.
to
I,
take
y-
a flight. But I think, I think the thing that I really, really remember was a conversation I had with somebody while I was stuck in St. Louis. And this person thought, I wouldn't say I was Muslim until
mhm,
the end. I wanted to
mhm.
find out what people were talking about. And this person
Sure,
was
sure.
laying it out about what they thought about Muslims and da da da. And I remember going to this person, I like, have you ever watched the movie Rosewood? And he
Mhm.
goes, no, I didn't think so. This
Yeah,
was our Rosewood. This this was Islam in America's Rosewood.
yeah. But
Now,
yeah, yeah.
somebody did something, but
Mhm,
it wasn't us. But you're gonna bear the brunt of it for
mm,
for however many years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. It will always be that. And now it's like ingrained. That's why I'm always a little hesitant, a little reticent when we talk about let's celebrate, let's remember 9/11. I'm like, you have people who have pulled resentment towards Islamic culture,
sure.
democracy as a whole, blacks, Latinos who weren't even alive when 9/11
Mhm.
happened.
Yeah,
They've
yeah.
been bred on this thing. It's like folklore
y-
that we produce children
Yeah,
who never ever had the opportunity to go to the airport and walk all the way up to the gate
to the gate.
to meet their parents.
Yeah, to
That whole generation is lost. It is never coming back.
it's
You got to
it,
wait outside security now. That's what they grew up with.
yeah, and I think about some of my like I think my eldest nephew just turned 29. Oh my gosh. Um and I'm just thinking back to that time, but I do have, nieces and nephews who were not born during that time and they don't even have a clue. And I think and I'm I'm thinking back to this COVID age now, right?
Yeah,
Like there are people who weren't born, or even I have nieces who are like 4 years old who may not even remember a time before COVID where they didn't have to wear a mask or they didn't have to, um,
absolutely.
have these stringent, you know, um, policies put on them because of this event.
I think
And
the thing that's really interesting is you
yeah,
have children in the Muslim community, in particular, who have grown up with anxieties
sure.
based upon 9/11. They've
Hmm.
had to deal with things like a Muslim ban,
Hmm.
things like, and of course, 9/11 gives rise to a thing like a Muslim ban.
Hmm.
And the policies, the Patriot Act. I remember, I remember. I don't know if you remember the Holy Land Foundation back in the day, where these
Hmm.
guys had to go to jail because they were accused of sending money to what was called a FTO, a foreign terrorist organization,
Yeah.
whereby if you sent money to a foreign terrorist, if you made a donation,
Yeah.
you literally, a lot of proliferation of new Muslim charities came out of the fact that nobody wanted to be associated.
Yeah, yeah, and and that's a good point because there were a lot of policies, even around banks and financial institutions, where you had to put you have, and it's still in place, where you have to put these rules in place, right? I don't know if it was Sarbanes Oxley or if that was before then, but
Yeah,
there are rules where there are a set of countries that you can't, that will be flagged um,
you took
if you
it
send
from them.
money to, if you receive money, send money to, and that's still in place,
I think that
right?
I think the thing also is that you know I was speaking at colleges, I was lecturing at colleges,
Mhm.
and the amount of energy
Mhm.
that was involved with trying to let people know, not so much that I'm okay,
Mhm.
I'm a Muslim, and you can like me. It was a thing we had to tell people, use some common sense.
Mhm. Mhm.
Use some common sense. Um, if I was a terrorist, I would have been on the plane. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
terrorist you're talking about, I would have been on the plane. We'd not be having these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
If I was a terrorist, I wouldn't be standing in front of you giving a lecture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then it was a whole thing of guess what? You've had black Muslims living around you 30, 40, 50 years.
Sure. Absolutely. And your
So
family. And your
now
family.
it's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Mm-hmm.
problem. You know, Ricardo didn't change his name to Ricky. He changed it to Rahman, and you know what I mean. We
Right.
went the other way. You know, we didn't know my name is Muhammad. Now it's Mo. It's like no, my name is
Sure.
Leon. Now it's Luke Man. We let it be known, and you know
Yeah.
the funny part, the weirdness. This is totally off
Mm-hmm.
the thing. This is totally off the thing. This is how weird and perverse this thing is. Since 9/11, you had a generation of hyper beard growers. The idea of the
Really.
beard, everybody had a beard. They used to call it, I got my own Sama. Everybody had a beard.
Hmm.
Like Muslims had beards, of course, but non Muslims lent themselves to growing large facial hair.
Hmm.
And it was, wow. Like
Wow.
you hate us, but you grow it. They talk about Muslims having beards. You look at insurrection, look at how many men had beards.
So I don't know if that was due to COVID though. So people just weren't shaving.
No,
That some of that may have been to
no,
that.
before COVID, people had
Let's
stopped shaving. Look,
fight the
what's that?
power word has slash Elijah. I had to prove I was born in the US just to get a passport. I had to send my yearbook, wow, from basic training. Never got it back. Oh wow. Elijah, you're on the list somewhere.
Yeah, thanks for coming to the show, Elijah. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
but I think also um
I was going to just say that
okay. Mhm.
to end the point about the beard.
Yeah.
That Americans, I'm not going to say all white Americans, but a lot of Americans saw this sympathy towards Muslims, and that began the shift of, oh no, we're victims.
N- that
Like
who are victims that
like American
mhm.
whites really framed this whole thing like, no, you can't. We're victims. We're the victims. Like when violence was happening towards Muslims and blacks were going to jail in record numbers after the Patriot Act,
Mm.
they tried to really, really fill this void that we are the victims. Even through the wars and attacks on foreign soil, they frame themselves as not the oppressors, we're the victims.
Hmm. Interesting.
George
I-
Floyd happens, you still have people going, oh
Sure.
no, we're the victims. You
Sure.
have a generation of Karens that came out, guess how old they are? Guess how old they're 25, 30.
They're
When
very
you
young.
remember,
Very young.
it seems like, yeah, we drudged this up. If you
Yeah.
look at the average age of the people who did the insurrections, all those people fall right in that age
Hmm.
because you're not going to get people like 70, 65,
No.
not even 50. You're going to get about 40. Take 20 years off of that.
Mm.
You got a problem. You got a problem.
Yeah. I was going to mention that there was, even after that, after 9/11, there was a really big surge in people um, trying to understand the religion. I don't know about the conversion rate, but they had people who
Conversion rate
were,
went up.
yeah, yeah,
Conversion rate went
yeah,
up.
yeah, to really because again they were, just not hadn't really read anything, but going off of this, what is it, you know, uh, virgin wives and you'll get into heaven thing, that everyone always quotes about a Muslim, and it's like, no, but it's like, okay, no, really, read the Quran, read what it says,
But
and you don't,
you'll have
you
stories. I
don't,
met a guy. You remember the guy we met in New York at NYU? He was on that Secret Lives of
yes, yes,
and
oh my gosh, yeah,
the guy talked
I
about
forgot
I
his
was going to
name,
go
the
there.
tall
I
white
forgot his
gentleman
name.
who converted.
Yeah, he was gonna kill a bunch of
It
Muslims, an
was
alcoholic.
like it was
Now
yes,
he winds up being in a man.
crazy. It was a crazy story.
If
He's in
that
there
was
now.
me, I'd still
He
be
was
under.
like in this biker club. It's like this whole like, he
He's
had
an
like,
ex-military guy.
researched ex-military guy, yeah, had researched like he was gonna go to I think he was gonna go to the masjid and like bomb the masjid. That was his like
Yeah,
he was gonna do that. And then for some reason, the FBI was onto him, and that didn't happen. But then he had went to like he met a
he
Muslim.
talked to a Muslim and
Yeah,
gave
that
him
was
information. I'm like, that's a beautiful story, but that's
crazy.
oddly freaking weird.
It was crazy. It was
That's
crazy.
real
Yeah,
weird.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
don't know whether to clap for you or I don't.
Or call the FBI.
Somewhere between calling, clapping, and
Yeah,
choking.
yeah. We gotta get him on the show. We gotta get him on the show.
No, 'cause I'm like, yo, I mean,
Yeah.
he's lecturing. Like, how do you lecture? I'm not being mean, but like, how do you lecture in front of people you wanted to kill? They pay you. That was the weirdest of 9/11. That's the weirdest of 9/11. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it was like,
you can't do that. And then you had all the people who are terrorism expert, all the Muslims, all the people who used to be Muslim now, non-Muslim now, an expert on Muslims. There was a guy who he was a terrorist. He was he was a reformed suicide bomber, and I'm like,
you're making it up now. That guy was making it up.
no. His name is
Really?
Abibat.
Hmm.
He was advising FBI about the mind of a suicide bomber. I'm like, well, you can't really be a suicide bomber because that would mean you had to
Actually, yeah,
suicide,
yeah, for sure.
unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, intended suicide bombing.
Yeah, but you had a proliferation of people who did that.
Yeah. So
It was just weird. It
yeah.
created these economies too. I can't tell you how many people got rich off of Islamophobia.
That was a new term that came out of it, right? Yeah.
I honestly, we're running over, but
Yeah.
I honestly believe that Islamophobia came out of the Muslim community. Like we put that term out.
You think so?
No, I'm
We did?
sure, fairly sure.
Interesting.
That came from us. People were like, "Oh, you're scared of us?" So that you never see Islamophobes going, "I'm a proud Islamophobe." You don't see that.
Okay.
Like that's not politically correct. They don't go, "Hey, I'm an Islamophobe. Join me." Like the KKK goes, "Hey, They don't really go on racist. They go on white power.
Yeah.
It really was not space for Islamophobes. What they did was they could be anti-Islamic, or they could be pro-patriotic. It was those two things. Built on this disaster event called 9/11.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're gonna get out of here.
I'm gonna let you wrap up. We're gonna take the last comment from Adam Kahn. Adam says, "The mind of a changed my mind bomber doesn't have the same ring to it."
Yeah, I'm like, if you're a suicide bomber, you're not really good at it. I don't mean to be critical.
Yeah.
But you have people like that. You have folks who are advising. Look, they haven't advised anywhere else in their life.
Yeah.
They're advising police force, FBI. Like every once in a while, here in the States, CARE or somebody will have to go after somebody who's advising or lecturing law enforcement.
Yeah.
And say, hey, this person was anti-Muslim, pull something off Facebook, whatever. I'm like, man, this is where we are. Well, listen, everybody, this has been fascinating. I'm going to let everybody get out.
I'm going to jump off.
I don't want to linger on 9/11, brothers and sisters.
Right.
Goes out to those who lost loved ones and friends and family. Of course, that goes without saying. But, you still got to think about this whole scope, because people have to understand why you remember 9/11. Remember this, it has an in it. Okay, let's get to our sponsor, 1-800-1-888-96-6845. Again, that's 1-888-496-6845. That is BeFinanciallyIndependent.com, BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. Get that call and number. Get that number a call. I'm sorry, brother. This is more dyslexic today. Give him a call. Also, if you're thinking about getting a quality Islamic graduate level education or at a doctoral level, you got to check out Bayan Islamic Graduate School. Again, that's Bayan Islamic Graduate School. Go to bayanonline.org. Again, that's bayanonline.org. Brothers and sisters, this has been a great, good spotlight, good dialogue. Thank you again, Sister Satana,
You're
for
welcome.
jumping
Thank you.
today. Thank everybody in the comment section for sharing. Ree Altoff, Adam, Fight the Power, Elijah, Fight the Power Word. Let me get that straight. Fight the Power Word, Brother Elijah, my main man. So listen, please keep those that we lost in dua, keep those that are still here struggling, keep them in dua, keep them in your
Absolutely.
prayers. Shout out for some of our sick and shut-ins, people that we've lost on the sick end. Sister Nancy, Sister Eleanor home from the hospital. We also have Brother Kendrick Samuels, who I talked to today. He's home from the hospital. Alhamdulillah for that. Sister Lorraine Kitchen. And of course, we lost some soldiers. CD Summer Cannon, Zafar Chowdhury lost his dad. Brother Ahmed Khatib lost his uncle. So listen, be positive, brothers and sisters. And if you see somebody, you know what, give them a hug, give them a smile. You know it doesn't cost you anything. I'm Preacher Mars. This is the Shout Out Show. See you tomorrow, inshallah. Take care now.